I would describe our relations as robust. They reflect a historically strong relationship that has crossed many administrations, both Republican and Democrat, going back now well over 75 years. I think the Biden administration sees that the relationship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is absolutely key to the U.S. interests and to U.S. Priorities in the region and beyond. And they understand that working with the Kingdom requires working with us and with our leadership.
Let's talk about the importance of this relationship at this point. The US is heavily engaged in trying to find a solution to the conflict in Yemen. They've made Yemen an absolute priority, and to that end, they've worked with you in the Kingdom to present a ceasefire offer to the Houthi rebels, which you yourself have said could pave the way for a, quote, political solution to the conflict there. Have the Houthis shown any signals that they are willing to engage with the Kingdom?
So far, we have seen continuing attacks across our borders, including attacks against civilian targets and infrastructure, and we see them continuing to attack Marib. So the indications are that they are still not serious about taking the steps that are necessary to move this conflict into a political phase. Nonetheless, we continue to push forward. We are in contact with the Houthis to try and convince them that putting the best interests of Yemen first is critical and key, and that we should all work together to make sure that this conflict moves now to a political process.
You have highlighted that attacks by the Houthis continue on the Kingdom and its infrastructure. Will you take this proposed ceasefire off the table if those attacks continue?
No, we are committed to the ceasefire. We are not going to take the ceasefire off the table, but we will be defending ourselves. We will make sure that our people and our infrastructure is protected, and we will also support the government of Yemen.
Well, the Houthis, of course, insist that any deal should include an agreement from the Kingdom to lift the sea and air blockade on what is this strategic Hodeidah port. The UN and World Food Programme support ending the blockade. A recent CNN investigation uncovering that Saudi warships had prevented oil tankers from docking at the port. As we understand it, 4 fuel ships will now be allowed to dock in Hodeidah, the first of which arrived last week. Can you provide more detail on that?
In the last 90 days, 67 ships docked in Hodeidah. And there is a continuing flow of goods and services both through Hodeidah and through 4 border crossings, and as well there are 2 other ports that are active. There is no blockade. There is a mechanism with the United Nations, agreed with the United Nations, to allow ships to enter Hodeidah, and that mechanism is continuing to be applied, and we assume the government of Yemen will continue to give their approval for these fuel ships to continue to enter.
What's the extent, sir, of Iran's support for the Houthis as far as the Kingdom is concerned?
The extent is broad and absolutely critical to the war effort. The ballistic missiles and drone technology is entirely of Iranian origin, which has so far resulted in well over 400 drones being launched across the border, hitting targets such as fuel depots, airports, other civilian targets. And we believe that without the support of Iran and its advisors that are on the ground, the Houthis could not be launching these attacks against Saudi civilian infrastructure, and they would be constrained in their attempts to continue to attack other parts of Yemen and take over the country.
Along with Israel and the Emirates, Saudi Arabia has said very clearly that it wants any new deal that the US might cut with Iran to include curbs on its ballistic missile program and its support of militia groups across the Middle East, not least in Yemen. How confident are you that Iran would agree to those terms?
We believe it's critically important that these issues be addressed. We see these deliveries of ballistic missiles to the Houthis, ballistic missiles and ballistic missile technology to the Houthis and other non-state actors as a critical source of instability in the region. The only way we are going to have a peaceful region, a secure region, is if we address these concerns.
What assurances, if any, are you getting from the Biden administration and other Europeans that the kingdom will have its concerns raised during any future negotiations of the JCPOA?
So let me be clear. The countries that are most at risk from a nuclear-armed Iran are the countries in the region, including, of course, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the GCC states. So it's entirely logical that we should be part of the discussion and part of the dialogue.
Bottom line, how realistic is it that you can be at the same table as the Iranians on any JCPOA negotiations?
Yeah, I think it's entirely realistic.
Do you seek a rapprochement with Tehran at this point?
We seek for Iran to stop its activities that are causing instability in the region, its aggressive behaviors. Of course, if it were willing to do so, that would open up the doors to not just rapprochement, but even cooperation. But we cannot have a rapprochement without addressing these very, very severe threats to regional stability and security, from Lebanon to Syria to Iraq to Yemen, as well as, of course, activities within states in the region, including Saudi Arabia, of supplying terrorists with bomb-making equipment, things like that.
This region is a very different place from the last time a democratic US administration negotiated with Iran starting in sort of 2013 for the original JCPOA, not least this region's burgeoning relationships with the East. China's foreign minister paid an official visit to Saudi Arabia last week to discuss the future relationship between your countries. How is the kingdom's relationship with China evolving?
Our relationship with China, of course, also goes back some decades, and it has continued to grow. As you made clear, economically, we are very strongly linked, both as an oil supplier, but also as a trading partner. And we think China's role in the region economically is likely to grow, and we value the partnership that we have with China. We work very well with our Chinese partners on a multitude of issues.
So I wonder how you then assess the trip by the foreign minister days after visiting the kingdom to Tehran, where he signed a deal to buy Iranian oil and to invest then. But I wonder, how does forging closer ties with Iran impact the kingdom's relations with China, if at all?
China understands our concerns about Iranian regional activity and about its destabilizing influence on the region. We believe they understand those concerns. They have expressed as much. They have also a good relationship with Iran, and perhaps they can use that good relationship to influence Iran to focus on the same things we are focused on.
I want to talk Israel. 2 days before Israel's election, Benjamin Netanyahu signaled that the normalization of ties with Saudi Arabia could be imminent, saying on national radio, "We will have direct flights for Muslim Israeli pilgrims from Tel Aviv to Mecca." How do you see the kingdom's relationship with Israel evolving, short and long term, sir?
That normalization in the region can only be successful if we address the issue of the Palestinians, and if we are able to deliver a Palestinian state within the 1967 borders that gives the Palestinians dignity and gives them their rights. If we can find a path towards that, then I think we can see a much, much safer region, a much more prosperous region, one where everybody can contribute to its success, including Israel.